Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast. For each week, we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up. I was going to do my entire, I've been using this same opener for years on the Marine Corps birthday, and I was going to do that one. Here, we're going to do this one real quick. Hold on. We're going to do this real quick. It's got the wrong year for birthday because this is 249, but we're going to do this real quick. Thank you for joining us on this special occasion as we celebrate the Marine Corps' 247th birthday on the Above the Bar podcast, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to a bunch of old, broken down Marines tell old, broken down stories. So as we always say on the Above the Bar podcast, be sure to push your stool.
What the fuck is the goddamn insurance giving me now?
That was for you, Tab.
I loved that. I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I got to update the year on that one. We normally do all the 8412s get together and we do a show, and a couple of guys were like, "You're not doing it?" And I'm like, I've got a Marine coming on as it is. And I talk to you guys all the time, so I figured we'd try something different. I do need to update that one though. But folks, joining us, you know what, Tab? Lance Colonel, Sergeant Major.
Oh, I got out as a sergeant.
Okay, so joining us from parts unknown, because I didn't even think about it. We were telling Marine Corps stories and what we do and don't like things beforehand. So we completely missed most of these things. So joining us, folks, because we're going to be talking about what it means to serve your country, what it means to transition. Our guests may even kind of give us their opinion on what it was like as a woman in the Marine Corps and transitioning out. But joining us, as I said, from parts unknown, it's Miss Tab Bartley.
And I'm in Virginia. I'm in right outside of Quantico, Virginia, Stafford, Virginia.
I know Stafford. I know
yeah.
Stafford. Yep. So how are you, Tab?
I'm good. How are you?
And folks, she has one of the unique opportunities to be someone who interviewed me.
Yes, I did. It was such a good time.
I really enjoyed that. You have a great show. And tell everybody the name of your show is?
Yes, it's the Oath We Took podcast.
And it's a lot of fun. She gets into talking to service members. Why did they join? What was their purpose? What was their reasoning? We're going to get into that. But before we get too far into all those things, let's go ahead and get some house cleaning done here, folks. As always, over my right shoulder, it's the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you got your own podcast, you got something you're supporting, something you believe in, a band, a club, I don't care what it is. You can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. Our website is the AboveTheBarPodcast.com. We have AboveTheBarPodcast@gmail.com is our email. Let me know what it is. I'll tell you where to mail that stuff out to you. Give me that sticker and a little write-up. I'll read about it so everybody can know about you and what you got going on. I was always thinking maybe we'd end up with enough stickers that would almost go over the Raven sticker, but I need more stickers, folks, but you can't cover my Raven stickers, is the way I'm looking at this. And then we got to talk about our sponsors. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson and Coxsackie in Schoharie, New York. They are the largest window treatment company in North America, even international. They have locations in Canada. They specialize in everything from blinds, shades, drapes, you name it. If it goes on your windows, they can take care of it. Nothing. I can tell you right now, I know for a fact that they have yet to find a window they can't cover. They can even motorize. This is wild. Check this one out. So Tab, it sounds like the greatest dive bar you've never been to. They work with a company that can motorize trapezoidal shapes and all these different shaped windows. But the company they work with that does it, I'm telling you, if I ever open a bar, I'm calling it this. It's called Blinds corners, and curves. Tell me that doesn't sound like some dive bar somewhere that you're like, it's
oh
the
man.
greatest dive bar name. Like you want to just go in and be like, you're like, there's going to be a sketchy waitress here that at some point I'm going to hit on, but it's going to be sketchy the entire time. Like some young Marine is like, she really likes me. No, she wants you to buy groceries for her house. Get over it, kid. So reach out to your local budget blinds. But if you're in the capital region, you're around budget blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, or Schoharie, let them know that you're there. This month, their sale is called Triple 50. It's 50% off of one window, 50% off of installation, and 50% off of shipping. And if you let them know you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you an extra 5%. And they always do for all veterans. They do a 20% discount for all veterans. So make sure you're reaching out to them. Let them know you're there to belly up to the bar. All right, there, Tab. All the housekeeping stuff. Field day's over. We're going to just reference every cliche
Everything.
Marine Corps thing that I can think of today. So how are you, Miss Tab?
I'm good. How are you?
I've got bourbon.
Hey, there you go.
Actually, I've got here's one. How many times did you ever run to Cadence or go on a hump and somebody talked about rye whiskey? Do you ever like?
See, I was a photographer, so most often I was not really in the formation. I was running around the formation trying to take photos and run to the next spot to take photos and not get stomped on, you know.
You're better than me. I just remember they would always call it like, have these cadences about rye whiskey, and I never knew what it was until I was like an actual adult, and I was like, oh, that's what that is. So can I tell you my only, well, not my only, but my main combat photographer and graphic designer story? You might even know who this Marine is. I don't remember her name. So when I was on recruiting duty, I'll never forget this. We had this was like the early mid 2000s. We had a female staff sergeant or gunnery sergeant show up on recruiting duty who she just couldn't take it. It was just too much of a job for her. And if you've never been on recruiting duty, it's the only time I've ever seen Marines that have taken rounds, like actual combat, like taken rounds, cry at their desk because it was too much for them. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm done with this. I can't handle this. This is more than I can handle. She's the only Marine I've ever seen. The minute they found out that she was done, her MOS snatched her back up, brought her back in. The last time I saw, she was like a master sergeant or master guns. The death curse of like not passing a B billet meant absolutely nothing. She was the #1 artist in the Marine Corps.
Well, and it's because those MOSs, and I forget what the artist MOS is, but before they merged together, because they've merged together, but Combat Camera Public Affairs, they didn't have to go on recruiting duty because our jobs were so high demand and there were so few of us and so many of us leaving within our first enlistment, that the marketing and public affairs billet was kind of considered a B billet. It wasn't technically a B billet, but it was kind of like considered the B billet. So instead of going on recruiting, it was very rare for public affairs or combat camera to go on recruiting duty. I know that's not the case anymore and hasn't been the case in quite a few years, but yeah, that was not the norm for our MOS because just our structure and how it is.
Oh, she's the only one I've ever seen. Only, and I mean, I kid you not. Do you remember? You probably don't even remember. I'm gonna make myself into an old fart for a minute. Back in my day, they used to send to the recruiting offices VHSs, and then they sent DVDs of like what's happening in the Marine Corps. Show these to your kids, and they would send us these videos. Now they're probably streamed or some shit like that.
Oh yeah.
But they would send them to us, and I'll never forget. She was there for like 6 months, gone. Like 6-8 months later, I'm watching one of the videos, and she's on it. I'm like, isn't this some shit right here? So yeah. Well, tell us. I mean, so Tab, you're in Virginia right now. Is that where you're originally from?
No, I'm originally from Lafayette, Indiana, which most people don't know where that is. But then you say Purdue University. Purdue University.
Listen, hold on. Even better than that, Lafayette Window Treatments is in Lafayette, Indiana. Did you know that? There's a window treatment company called Lafayette, and that's where they're at.
I did not.
All American-made window treatments.
I wouldn't be surprised. The amount of locally owned businesses we have in Lafayette, specifically in West Lafayette, is just like I knew who my butcher was growing up, and like those type
Oh,
of
wow.
things. Like that's very much the
That's
vibe.
the vibe.
That's the vibe.
So, and I want everyone to understand, what it means to serve and serve your country. Especially, we just had the second most important holiday, Veterans Day, next to the most important, which is the Marine Corps
Marine Corps
birthday.
birthday.
That's the only one that matters. If you remember, it comes before Veterans Day, folks. It comes before. Did you see that they're rebuilding Tun Tavern in Philly?
I did. Oh, yeah. I think our Marine Corps League detachment is gonna hopefully one day like plan a trip there.
I'm all about it. So, I mean, talk me through, Lafayette. I do really know where Lafayette is. It's a small town. They, I can't imagine that there's a ton of people coming out of there heading off to the Marine Corps. And folks, if you don't understand it, for somebody who I did 12 of my 20 years on recruiting duty, not, when you're dealing with small towns, it's always tough. But then you add to that, a young lady from a small town is even rarer air to have happen. So how do you end up in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, and let me one up you on that rarity. So I actually was going to community college on a full ride scholarship called the 21st Century Scholarship when one day out of the blue, a recruiter called me, Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez. He said, you want to join the Marine Corps, want to come in and talk? So those recruiter supplied lists. So every high school has to provide a list of their kids. For some reason, they were looking at a graduate list. And it was like, yeah, sure, I'll come in and talk to you, but like there's no way I'm joining the Marine Corps. Like that's just wild. However, started talking. He was a huge New York Yankees fan. My whole family was huge New York Yankee fans. He was from New York. So we were talking like Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter, like that era. And then he started talking about public affairs and that job. And public affairs was, training in journalism, photography, public speaking, community relations, media relations. And I had no idea you could do that in the Marine Corps. And the more we were talking, he then tells me the story. And I always preface this. I have no idea if the story is true or not. And it does not matter. Okay. It doesn't matter for the sake of it. It really worked. So he was talking about a humanitarian mission that he had been on and how they were in this location. And at that time, like Darfur was happening. A lot of things were happening. And I was very interested in doing social work and doing good in the world. And so he tells me the story how he was on this humanitarian mission and there were multiple branches of service there. And the whole goal was to get provisions, food to these civilians without getting shot at and without causing things happening.
More issues.
And, the Air Force had tried and they got shot at. So they had to pull back. The Army had tried and they got shot at. And then his unit of Marines was called in. And because of what that uniform meant, wearing it, they were able to get provisions in because obviously they weren't going to fire at Marines. And that story and just the symbolism of it, of the ability of this legacy and this being meaning so much that your presence is so well known that you then could do good. And he didn't BS me on the reality of what the Marine Corps was. And that was the other thing. He didn't BS. I remember we had a lot of conversations, especially before knowing what my job was going to be for certain, of what the impact of being a Marine could be, right? Because of the force of what we are. And he was just willing to have those very honest conversations. And so, I mean, it was a catalyst of all of those things, right? It wasn't just that story, but that's the story that always sticks out to me. And then how much he went to bat so that I could get the public affairs job.
They're not easy to get.
They're not easy. And at that time you had to interview. You had to go through 2 interviews.
Yes. You had a portfolio sometimes. I trust me, I know exactly what
that was. Exactly. So, and how much effort he put in. So I had to get multiple waivers, MEPs. I think I hold the record for RSS Lafayette at that time. At least I did, because I had inhaler use from I didn't have asthma, but I had inhaler use from a sickness. I was a 6-sport athlete. So I had a lot of injuries, broken nose 6 times. There were so many things that they had to get waivers for. And he went through all the hoops to get me the waivers.
First and last time treated and a clearance letter from a doctor. That's what I need. I need all your medical records. First and last time treated and a letter from the doctor saying you're good.
And let me tell you, my recruiter finding my, like, when I was like 5 years old and stuck a sixlet up my nose, and how much fun he was making of me on that. So that's a good time.
He went through the. Oh God, I remember those days of going through that and just kind of. I'll tell you, you'll appreciate this. I always remember some of the most fun waivers I ever wrote was I wrote a waiver for a kid who had stolen a car when he was like 15, and but he had enough green weights. He went to juvie, cleaned his act up, got his degree, was working at a youth camp. I made him a motor T driver. How great is that? He was a motor T driver. We had a young lady, Jen. God, I can't think of her last name. She had a hole in her heart when she was born. We got the waiver, got her approved. She was the best. She could do 17 dead hang pull-ups before pull-ups were a thing. This was 01, and she's like ripping 17. And I would look at my male recruits and be like, "You're just turds. Look at her go." It was great. But I understand exactly those stories change everything. And really, I appreciate hearing that, because that was your first taste of not like, hey, my best friend's dad's cousin was a Marine, and he, and he either was the guy that walks in the room like, I hate the Marine Corps, or he was the one with the big red one hat on, and everybody's like, how long were you in? I got kicked out 1 year in because I had flat feet. Like, we all know these people. You got to experience somebody. And now I'm curious, as somebody in this, and you ain't going to blow my ego up, but how did that set your tone for you moving forward in the Marine Corps?
Completely and utterly. So I was unique. I had to wait 5 months to get in the delayed entry program because I wanted public affairs. And then I was in the delayed entry program for 11 months. Very, very long time. Most people are not waiting that long to join the Marine Corps and actually like in the system there. And again, I had already graduated high school. I was going to school, involved in men's volleyball coaching at that time. And my recruiter, me and my husband talk about this all the time. He is like such a father figure to me. And he was the first mentor I had in the Marine Corps. But it went beyond that. It was every recruiter in that office. Like, I was the recruit who got a letter from every recruiter in my office, even the staff in COIC. Now, granted, obviously I had been there. I was older. As you know, like 1 year makes a huge difference in boot camp. 2 years is like, it's like night and day. And so that completely set the tone of the Marine Corps and my expectancy of the Marine Corps, and like the camaraderie and the dependability. They were the perfect examples, perfect in regards to like our relationship of how. And I remember going to boot camp and other women talking about like very negative experiences with their recruiters. And I was just like, what?
What do you mean?
Whether sexual relations or just they did nothing for them, or like just all of these things. And I'm not saying that was everybody there, but like for the first time I heard those stories. Yeah, because that's not what I was experiencing with my recruiters, right? And social media isn't what it is now either. You weren't hearing those type of things as just, you can go anywhere nowadays and find any story and any, experience.
Well, what year did you enlist?
2010.
2010. So I could have definitely been the ARI. No, 2010. Yeah, I was already up here. I'd have been the ARI or the ops chief at that point. I'd have been, but I was in Albany doing all that. That's so wild to me. It's funny to me. I'm when I hear these people, hear folks, and they're like, "Yeah, this is the year," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not." Look, I just spoke to a kid that one of my sons is named after a kid I put in the Marine Corps.
That's crazy.
Because he was the first kid I put in that went to Iraq and came home. And I was like, it meant so much to me. So I named my son after him. And then I just talked to him the other day, and I was like, and it dawned on me, I was like, some bitch, that was 2001. That was a long ass time ago. So you go through recruit training, and for any parents that are out there, or maybe I'd be surprised if somebody of age was listening, but But any parents out there, what would you say? Because I know what it was for me. What's up, Isaiah? My good friend Isaiah Gill. He's the drummer for the band Black Flag. The dude's amazing drummer. What would you say some of the things for you that were kind of, like I was that recruiter. I never sugarcoated anything, but any of the things that you experienced in boot camp where you're like, oh, that son of a bitch didn't tell me that one. They didn't tell me this was coming. What was it for you?
So I didn't have that. I loved
Nothing.
boot camp. It was so entertaining to me. It was hilarious to me. And I'm not saying it wasn't hard, but I absolutely loved boot camp. And you can, like, my mom can vouch for me, like my letters. I loved the food in boot camp. Like I had a good time. MCT was not for me, but that's because I lost my grandfather while I was on recruiter's assistance right before MCT. So MCT was really like a blur. Like I probably couldn't tell you anything from MCT. Boot camp loved. My only thing was the camaraderie wasn't what I thought it was going to be in boot camp. I thought there was going to be a lot more teamwork, and for me, it really wasn't that much teamwork in boot camp. It wasn't very to the level of that I thought, I guess, or that like I experienced.
Feel like female catty more than anything.
It wasn't catty. It's just there were like specifically. I remember, so I'm 5'2". I'm very short, and it wasn't the crucible, but at some point you're doing something where you got to like climb over a wall, and it wasn't the obstacle course. And I'm like,
you're doing the CCR.
Yes.
CCR.
So we're doing that, and I'm like chucking people over it, and I'm getting screamed at for like chucking people over it. And I'm just like, this is the fastest way to get our group over, right? Just like keep chucking people over. And so very little things like that, but it didn't like emotionally affect me. It was just like, I thought the whole point was like,
get in, get it done, and let's move on.
Yeah, like, but there were just little moments like that. Again, not a big deal. I think it was just like because I had played sports so much. I do think that maybe there were females who I don't think had as much leadership before the Marine Corps as I did. I wasn't in a group so when I went September to December. So it was, I think, more the people who were kind of like later in life. We had a lot more of older people, and it just didn't seem like my class had very many athletes or people who had been in leadership or that type of stuff. So that was a little strange to me. But again, like I loved boot camp. It was a great experience. Loved taking educators back for the workshop to show them, what boot camp was. But yeah, my recruiter literally told me everything from the tampon situation to how my period probably wouldn't exist. Like he was a father, so he was able to have those conversations. There wasn't anything that surprised me. And that was the other thing. A lot of other females were surprised by a lot of stuff because
they weren't prepared.
They weren't prepared.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned those things. So as a guy who did it for so long, and one of the biggest things I used to tell females was, go spend the money on good quality sports bras. Buy them now, put your names in them, take them with you. And they would be like, I can take that. I'm like, yes, you can take that. That is yours. You can have that. Cause we had a young lady, they were the Brary twins. God, I don't even know why I remember their names. I didn't even recruit them. Somebody else recruited them, and I just shipped them. But I remember she had done that, and she came back, and that was one of the things she was like, hey, tell any females when they go, buy the good quality. Nike at the time was the thing, so that when they get down there, they'll be happier. God, why the fuck did that even come to mind to me?
But like, there's things like that. And even like, I was like, do I need to cut my hair off? Because I had long hair. And he was like, no, your hair will be easier to manage long because you're not washing it. And so it's things like that seem little, but when you have that recruiter who A, is a father and is comfortable having those conversations, or B, just in general comfortable having those conversations, it makes a massive difference. And I think that like that tone really set a good tone for me for the Marine Corps and leadership and how it should be. And that's kind of how my experience was in the Marine Corps too. Things were just very open.
You make it through. You're done with boot camp. Actually, I didn't think about it till a moment ago. I should have got my Aunt Linda to come on. My Aunt Linda was a Marine, but my Aunt Linda was a Marine before when they did things like, let us show you how to put your makeup on. She will tell you she never fired a rifle in her entire career. She went from boot camp training right to the Pentagon, and today we call it admin. She was a secretary. She'll tell you that was, she went from one to the other, and that was it. I thought about it after. I was like, oh God, how great would this have been? Aunt Linda could have talked to somebody. So her experience was very different. So you get into the Marine Corps, and I don't want to get into back in my day. Like, I will tell you things like, I watched females go from 1.5 mile run to 3 miles. I watched you guys go from no MCT to MCT. Like, we used to show up in Jacksonville, and females would be going over like admin school or motor T school as we were going off to MCT. Like, that was a thing. But so you get in, you go to your MOS school. I think sometimes MOS schools throw people off personally. Did you feel like it set a good foundation, or was it more of like, see your smile? Like, if you're not watching,
I go to the Defense Information School.
I love
it. Is a college accredited institute. It's internationally known.
Now, where is
it? It is in Maryland, Fort Meade, Maryland.
Okay.
They just had an alumni day. I went to their alumni day and got training, and I'm out of the Marine Corps. Do what?
You were in my hood.
Yeah. Wait, you're there?
I'm from Dundalk.
Oh, well, I was just there for an alumni day.
Yep.
So our school is, I think, different than a lot of other MOS schools, that it's really this collegiate level institute that is like, people in the industry, the public affairs realm, the media, like all of those things, they know what the Defense Information School is, and especially federally, even non-DOD. That's how I was able to get into the Department of Agriculture, is they knew what my experience in the military, and specifically from being trained from that school, what it means to go to that school. So our MOS school, the Defense Information School, it was great. It was the best foundation I think that I could have gotten an experience. And it was just like, again, I picked my MOS for a reason. Okay. The job that I did in the Marine Corps is because I wanted to do those things. And again, I was trained in photography, journalism, media relations, public relations, community relations. And so just a great school all around. And it's a joint. So all the branches are there. All the branches are there.
So I actually have a buddy of mine, Mike Falvo. Mike went through that school, and he's now at New York State. He is, I don't know if he's a director or necessarily the level of his role, but he's responsible for all the audio visual for New York State government when they're having things going on. He's recording it, he's doing it, and then they actually come to him for the information. But on the side, and I'm curious for you with that background, I know you have the podcast. And look, folks, if you want to know what Tab's got going on, if you just look up #Blunt Bartley, and it's not like blunt, it's blunt, like being blunt, Bartley. If you look that up, you can see what she's got going on. You can check out her podcast. You should watch my episode multiple times just because it's me. You can see it. And if you're watching us right now, and you're any of the folks either on her stream or my stream, and you have questions.
Dimfo's trained killer, yeah.
What is defense?
That's what we call ourselves. Yeah, Dimfo's trained killers. I actually, oh man, I don't know. I have a lanyard and swag with it.
So this is must be obviously. Oh my God, Dimfo trained killers. That's hilarious. I love it. That is a great coin, though. That is an absolute. Like, where's my coin? Did I move my coin thing and I didn't realize it? No, like I see this. You'll appreciate this as I'm looking for my coin, all my challenge coins. This is sitting on top of my challenge coins. Like I will show you. Like, I still stand by that these were the best style challenge coins ever produced. One of my RSs. Where's the one? God, where are you? There it is. So when I was in RS Harrisburg, instead of like the traditional challenge coins, we had poker chips as challenge coins. Do you know how great it is to have poker chips as challenge coins? Like, that was such an awesome thing. But look, folks, if you have questions, you want to make comments, please put it in your chat box. We'll ask it here live. Let everybody know. But so you're going through this. Obviously, you're working with other branches of service. You're getting to experience that. You go through your career anywhere. I tell you, one of the things I'm always curious of is, how do they train you guys to disseminate the information? And I think this phrase will make sense to you. Take the sting out of things. How do they train that for you within that? And folks, what I mean when I say take the sting out of it, instead of saying, oh my gosh, someone's dead, saying, hey, there was somebody, lost their life, taking that. How do they train that in a location like, especially because their age groups are all over the place?
Yeah. So we follow AP style. That's what the military follows. That's what most institutes follow. So writing of journalism. And then it comes to really being concise. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on as DINFO's trained killers or being the military is that, like, we are not writing opinions into our things. It is pure journalism of what it should be, what it was intended to be, what it used to be. And so that's very much trained into being concise, being short, and not having the fluff, not having these things. So it's following those actual formats of what a news release is, what a feature story is. That training that, journalists get in college, we got that. We just got it in a super condensed version.
Meat potato version.
And then I was lucky that my first job in the Marine Corps was for the last weekly newspaper that the Marine Corps had, the Quantico Century. So I was writing 10 to 12 stories a week when we were at our peak, which is very high rate. And so that was just like a great learning experiences. My first duty station was Quantico. So we had everything you could imagine happening there, from like I met the commandant to the amount of times that Bonnie Amos absolutely just absolutely, oh, Paris, hello, Capus.
Quantico Century mentioned, huh?
Yes. So he worked with, we were at Quantico together. We were stationed together at Quantico.
How much did you love Q-Town?
I still go there. I just went Saturday to get sushi because the sushi in Q-Town is the best.
I would look at that. Love me some Tab. Hey sis, I would tell you that was the first time I ever had bulgogi.
Bulgogi. Yes.
Bulgogi sandwich in Q-Town, and the soup guy. Listen,
he's
folks.
Gone. Harrios. He's gone. He's been gone for years. Not to break your heart, but he's been gone for a few years.
Oh, man. Q-Town is the only place, folks, for Marines where we can actually wear our camis in town. And I'm not going to get into the whole story, but it's the only town within a Marine Corps base kind of thing. So they're teaching you true fundamentals of journalism, how to report a story, how to take it. I am curious, and you can say, oh, I can't go ahead into that. But did you ever have a story that you were trying to present, and it might have been something where, if it would have gone out in the way it was supposed to, somebody was like, nah, not today, Satan. We can't write that. It was just somebody wanted you to redact it, and you were like, I really think this needs to be presented.
So lucky that never happened to me. I know like other people did, but I ended up doing the Comrail program. So I think I worked for the base newspaper about a year. And then that was my first duty station. And my second duty station was as the marketing and public affairs Marine for a recruiting station.
Okay.
I will say what did happen though.
What RS was it?
Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. Oh my God. Did you, Terrell Gay? Did you know Gay?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So that's a buddy of mine. He ended up being the RI down there.
Okay, then it must have been either before or after. But what I will say is social media was kind of hitting off. And when you're doing marketing and public affairs, you're like the director of public affairs and marketing, and you're the advisor to the commanding officer there. And that was the time Vanessa Guillotine and sexual assaults in the Marine Corps were really being talked about a lot. And I ran the Marine Corps Educators Workshop, and I had built this great relationship with educators in our workshop where we were able to have these really raw conversations. And so when there was a lot going on around the Marine Corps and that, I, on my personal Facebook, had created a post, talking about, yes, the Marine Corps does have an issue. I am not pretending that it does. But at the same time, I've been in for 6+ years and I've never experienced it because of the male Marines around me who have never allowed it to happen, who have put other male Marines in their place. And I essentially was calling out, bystanders have to do just as much, if not more, than those who are doing these things. And I don't remember what it was, but my CO liked it, my XO liked it, and I had this gunny come in, and I was a corporal at the time, lowest ranking in the entire command, right? Comes in my office angry. He's like, "Why would you post that? These educators are interacting with it, and they're going to turn them away from the Marine Corps." And I was like, "No, what's going to turn them away from the Marine Corps, gunny, is not talking about the issues that are already in the news."
100%.
Again, like, that is not like us not talking about it. Like, that's wild. Tries to berate me. "Oh, you're not standing at parade rest." Like, you know how recruiting duty is.
I know.
I'm like, "What? You're in my office, but okay, great." And so I just let him go. And then finally I was just like, "Do you want to go talk to the XO or the CO about it?" Because they liked the post. So, like, go ahead. So that was probably my most controversial moment. But yeah, I luckily didn't have to write any story. And again, I got Blunt Bartley in the Marine Corps because I learned tact was something I had to master very early on, because
tact's a tough one sometime.
Well, I refused not to say what needed to be said. And I learned that as long as I had tact, at least no real repercussions could happen. If I was tactful in what I said, right, you really couldn't come after me. There was nothing that could be done.
Well, what's interesting about what you're talking about is I've told the story on here, and the Marines reached out to me. I had a female Marine that I put in the Marine Corps that, the one thing I always say we don't talk about is she was sexually assaulted in the Marine Corps, but not by a male Marine. She was sexually assaulted by a female Marine. And I've told that story many times, and people are like, "What? Come on now." I'm like, no, that's exactly what happened to her. And it's interesting. I have mixed feelings personally about the new civilian court thing where they're going to be overseeing these, but at the same time, I mean, you never let a fox decide, what fox ate the hen. That's
and I think that's the issue. And part of my issue and part of what I was talking about in that post was that sexual assault and sexual harassment isn't a woman's issue. It's not an issue for females because it doesn't just affect females. Like, I was a sexual assault victim advocate at the RS, and something I'm super, super passionate about in regards to talking about it. And this perception that it only happens to females, or that females are the only ones who should be talking about it or to do it. That's not the case. Now, men oftentimes will classify it in their minds as hazing or something else to be able to cope with it. It often takes male survivors way longer to ever talk about it and all these things. And there's not resources for men. So, like, that was like the spur of like that post I made. It was really that. It was like literally discussing all of those things, and he thought it was the end of the world. And instead, it had more teachers and educators coming to me to ask their opinion, to learn more, and to feel more comfortable. And then they felt more comfortable saying or giving information to females, saying this may be an option for you. And so that's where I guess like the journalism background helped me so much, because it was like, we can have hard conversations. It's just, how are we going to have them? When you try to hide stuff,
it never works.
That's when it doesn't work out.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't believe that male Marines are sexually assaulted, take your time, go back to the story of Eighth and I, the Drum and Bugle Corps. Have you ever seen that story?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's one the Marine Corps has done a good job of. Go ahead and let's sail that one away from everybody. Yeah, they used to have a hazing ritual for the Drum and Bugle Corps where they would put not MNU, but gosh, what was the name of the stuff? That went around the outside of the shinier quarter frames that put the shine on it. God, I can't think of the name of it. But they would take that and put that on your hoo-hoo. And as part of the hazing rituals, edge dressing. Thanks, Paris. But yeah, they would put that on your hoo-hoo, and it was all these things because it would burn and like, look what we did. And listen, even we equate it as male Marines, we equate it to locker room conversation. We equate it to like, and look, I look back at things that we did and I go, oh, you couldn't do that today. Yep. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do those. And I'm not going to get into those things because I'm not, just, hey, like you said. But we did things, and now looking back at it, it's like, yeah, probably wasn't appropriate. Probably wasn't the proper things to ever do. So you did definitely have a good group around you because, like I said, I mean, the other side to it is I've known a lot of other female Marines that they wanted to be one of the boys, which I'm going to tell you as a dad and as an adult male, I never wanted any. I don't want you to be one of the boys. I want you to be one of the Marines. I'll never forget one of the best conversations. A good friend of mine, retired Gunnery Sergeant Twiddell, and I were having a conversation one day, and I made young, dumb. He's two. Let's see. Let me think about it for a second. So Troy is 2 years older than me. Tweety's 2 years older than him. That's how we always equated everything. We all had 2 years on each other. So I was always the youngest. And I remember saying something, and he looked at, and I was like, oh, that female Marine. And he was like, show me where it says female on her contract. It says Marine. Her uniform doesn't say female. It says Marine. So get your shit together. And it really was an eye opener because this was somebody I respected a lot. And it took me a moment. And I went, you know what? There's no reason to be treated any different. So I applaud it. And Paris, I'm going to get to this barracks story. I kept it up there for a reason that she has to
Oh
tell.
no, I don't know which barracks story he's talking about.
Okay, so
there's
you'll have
way
to give
too
more
many.
detail.
So I'm going to say no to capers. And what I will say is
That's
my
crazy.
gender.
Did you look it up, Paris? I have to ask. I'm assuming you just looked up the story I was talking about at the. If you get a chance, it made national news.
I will.
But look that one up.
But what I will say is, like, for me, part of the reason why my transition out of the Marine Corps was so hard, because oftentimes in the Marine Corps, my gender was a positive, especially on recruiting, just in general. Like, I constantly was talking to people about being a female in the Marine Corps, and I loved my job, so it was easy to talk about.
You
and
carry yourself very well.
Well, I had great leadership around me, great Marines around me. I was seriously, like, blessed with amazing Marines around me.
Why did you get out? I got to ask, because we're then why get out?
So, 6 weeks postpartum after having my third child, I was on recruiting, and the Rucking Raiders were coming through Columbia, South Carolina. Our police were going to hike. Obviously, I'm the only one who knows how to take pictures at our RS. So I go out, do 8 miles 6 weeks after having a baby, and the next day ended up in the emergency room with multiple organ prolapses. So my bladder, my uterus were falling out of my body. Didn't know that was something that could happen.
I didn't know that.
And as you can imagine, I couldn't stay in the Marine Corps. I could hardly stand without severe pain. Didn't have full control of bodily functions. Just like my body wasn't working.
Your body was
anymore.
shutting down.
And I went up for a med hold, and the provider who saw me said that plenty of women live with it and it wasn't life or death. So the VA could fix me. There was no reason for me to be held to go on a med board or for the Marine Corps to fix me. As you can imagine, it's hard even now to process that. My husband had gotten out of the Navy because the dual military was just too hard. We weren't going to do that for our children. And he got out of the Navy. So, I'm the bread, I have the income. He's a stay-at-home father. He was going to school and doing welding, but essentially the fact was that he was going to be the stay-at-home parent if need be. And so this is 5 days before my EAS, And so I contact my local senator and was like, I need a congressional inquiry done. I don't know what else to do at this point, but this is wild. And my senator said that wasn't his job because he wasn't on the veteran committee. So that's 5 days. Yeah, that's not true either. But I have 5 days at this point. So now I have to figure out where we're going to live. And at this point, I have been months and months of not knowing exactly what was wrong with me because, hey, as a woman, you can't just go to a gynecologist if you're in the military. You have to get a referral. And then I had to get a referral to a specialist. So the jumping through hoops of medical was this was 9 months, something like this, to finally get an answer. And
that's insane because you're talking about this is 2020 at this point.
This is 2018.
Okay, 18.
End of 2018. So at that point, it's well, we have to figure out how we're going to live, how we're going to feed our kids, so on and so forth. And so I always say, the transition for me was the most mentally, physically, and emotionally challenging time of my life. I wouldn't wish my transition on anybody. I wasn't sure I was going to survive it. And I don't like to say that I was suicidal, but I understood in that moment how a veteran could come to the conclusion of suicide. I felt like a burden to everybody around me. My husband had to carry the load of everything. I am traumatizing my children because I'm getting taken away multiple times in an ambulance. My mental health is crashing. I can't stand for more than 10, 15 minutes. Like, I wasn't doing any of the things that me as a mother thought that I should be doing, or me as a wife. And I moved back home. And I love my family so much and my cousins, and they were so supportive, but I felt like a burden because they didn't understand, the military, the Marine Corps. And then on top of it, it's this taboo subject of like, what's
Right.
wrong with you? Your organs are falling out. Oh, ick. And I didn't know how to process that because my whole time in the Marine Corps, I had multiple hip surgeries and other things happen, and I could always talk to every Marine about anything. It was like emotions and what I was going through was such a part of everybody around me, and there just weren't secrets and there weren't things like that. So it was so weird to all of a sudden feel like I had to edit myself when I never did in the Marine Corps. Like, I was able to be my authentic self. And so all of those things, it was really a challenge. It was a lot more of a challenge than I ever thought it would be, with having the skill sets I had and the job I had in the Marine Corps, right? I was setting myself up for an easy transition, and it didn't matter.
That's why. And look, folks, we're getting close to closing the bar. If you want to know what Tab's got going on, if you look up hashtag Blunt Bartley, that's her hashtag on everything. Instagram, you can check out her podcast. You can see what she's got going on, what's happening. And as I always say, if you're finding her through me or me through her, make sure you're following both of us. But if you have questions for either of us, and I want to kind of, I can't even imagine what that emotionally did for you. But the other side, I'm going to kind of boost you up here a little bit, prop you up, because the other side of it is you come out of that on the other side as, let's see, you return to the National Capital Region, project manager through Purdue for Life Foundation, public affairs specialist, USDA Agricultural Marketing Service, president for the Department of Agriculture's Veteran Employee Organization, first female president. Look at you, fancy pants. Board of directors for Minority Veterans of America, women's veteran policy coordinator for the interagency
Veterans.
No, I can't read. Right, I am a gun
Council.
sergeant. I am a gun sergeant. Interagency Veteran Advisory Council, marketing public affairs officer for Jack Moss Marine Corps League Detachment, previously secretary for Fredericksburg Area Veterans Council, member of the Lafayette DAV, Women's Veterans and Tipper Canoe. How about you? How many people actually know that one? Tipper Canoe and How About You? Veteran Council, host of your podcast, Oath We Took podcast. I mean, for that, like, where did the intestinal fortitude that we talk about as a Marine, where does it come from for you? And I'm curious, was it, hey, six sport athlete, I always kind of had it, or was it something that, as we talk about that raw material, that the Marine Corps, what is it for you that turns around and now you're this person?
I guess it was kind of always me. I always wanted to do a million things, but like at the core of it, like I just wanted to do good, and I didn't want anybody to go through what I went through. So I actually ended up running for state senate in 2020. And I'm
What?
the least political person out there. Like, I am not, again, Blunt Bartley. But I didn't want anybody to go through what I went through. There was obviously my state senator didn't want to do his job, so I said, no problem, I'll take it. Not an issue. I didn't win. That's good.
That's okay.
Because that's completely fine. It was a great experience. But it's just this, like, if I can do it, then I should. And if I have the privilege and the ability, like now I work for the Department of Agriculture, and I feel and am so secure in my job that, like, I talk about my mental health struggles. I talk about, my disabilities, physical and mental, and all of these things, because I'm in a place that I have the privilege to do that without feeling like there's going to be repercussions for it. And I just feel my belief, and I think like people, when we're all connected, and it's so important, and I try to live my life with love and show that. And I'm not the nicest person, like nobody will ever be like, oh, she's so nice. Yeah, however, I
We are
do
always nice
try.
as Marines. We are always nice.
Yeah, but I
Get
do
your
try.
face.
Yeah, I do try to like live my life through like love and showing that. And for me, it's like actions and doing things. And I just don't know how to not do things. And so I guess it's just who I've always been, that I just like, what more can I do?
But you know what? The things you're talking about, when you talk about, oh, I'm not the nicest. We really are. We just, as a Marine, we just approach things different. I, I'm, I'm not gonna just be like, oh, let me fluff you up. If you suck, you suck. I just have to tell you that. But I'm not telling you suck because I'm a mean person. I'm telling you suck because I want you to be a better person. I will tell you, and I'm curious for yourself, other than dealing with those medical things, when you first started having to deal with civilians from a work standpoint, what was your biggest challenge?
Honestly, my biggest challenge was myself, because I didn't think that I could be who I was in the Marine Corps in the civilian sector. Because, like, in the transition class, they're like, don't share that you have children because you may be discriminated against. Don't share this.
Yeah.
I thought, like, because I, kind of had a baby face, that I had to put on this full face of makeup. There were all these things that I thought to be considered professional in the civilian world that I had to do. And let me tell you, it took way longer than it should have. I had amazing coworkers and people at Purdue University, but I remember the first time another woman that I worked with, she said the F word, and I was like, oh, oh. So it's like, maybe I can be me a little bit. And I'm not saying like, go around cussing
You are
everyone
like, fuck
wild,
you
but
assholes. I'm killing all you bitches now.
what I thought that I had to be this thing, and I had
Oh,
literally never not been myself, and had just spent 8 years literally like completely and utterly being blunt, Bartley, learning my leadership, and I didn't think the civilian sector could handle me, but they could, and they loved it. And so when I then embraced myself again, everything, mental health, emotional well-being, all of that, it really like it benefited it. So it wasn't really so much the
I love it.
actual people, it was me and my perception of what I thought I had to do to be professional in that environment.
You know what it was for me? It was not showing people what I knew. I'm so used to being in the Marine Corps where like you check into a unit and you better show people what you know right away or they just discount you as an imbecile. Where when I got dealing with civilians, it was so different. You had to almost act like you were an imbecile and let everyone else explain things to you and go, "Oh, really? That's great." And then go about your day like, "Fucking no, I get it. I know how to do that." But then they felt like I showed that guy how to do that thing, and you're like, "I've been doing this for 20 years. Like I know how to do this thing." Yeah, that was my biggest struggle was like not like, and I actually had a guy tell me one time, he was like, stop acting like you know things. I'm like, but I do. This is what I'm supposed to do is show people what I know so they don't think I'm an idiot. And he's like, nope, let them think they've taught you something. And I did. Tab, I promise you, it was like an epiphany moment. People were like, I really like that guy. I should, and I'm like, you didn't teach me nothing. It was real. So
See, and maybe it's the journalist in me that we've always taken that approach, because we learned, like, in journalism, especially at Quantico, that like we are not the SME. And even if we are, you get better responses from people if they think like they're like, telling you. So maybe that's like, I didn't see that because that was already like, again, the public affairs mindset is that
Tab, I'm
I
an
don't know
8412.
anything. Yeah, I
Tab,
don't know
I'm an
anything.
8412. I'm an
I
8412.
know.
I walk into a room and it's like, how many contracts did you write? Let me tell you what I did.
I
75
know.
contracts in 22 months. What did you do? Yeah, I was recruiter of the year. What were you? Like that was my world. So it
Yeah.
really was. And I mean, you folks, if you don't know, Tab will tell you, I come from a ego driven career field that everyone wants to show you who's better than who, and you better come with your be weak. I don't think there's another MOS that eats their young like we do.
No,
There is not another.
not at all.
And Paris says, we love pretending to be the regular PFCs. I mean, it was a tough one. So then we got a couple more minutes here. I got a couple important questions here. So why the podcast?
Oh man. So I loved what I was doing at the Department of Agriculture. Absolutely loved it. But I missed Marines and I missed telling the Marine Corps story because I absolutely loved doing that. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I was trying to think of ways with the capacity of obviously like I have a lot of extracurricular activities or volunteer activities and I have 4 children. What could I do in the time that I could allot to telling the Marine Corps story? And it was just like a podcast. I can do a podcast. It doesn't take a lot to have a podcast. I mean, it takes a lot to have a podcast, but like manageable. And then I looked at the Marines around me and I was like, you guys have so many stories. And I really wanted to focus on the stories that most often aren't heard in the Marine Corps and in a multitude of ways from all these different angles. And from, obviously I have interviewed a lot of public affairs and combat camera because oftentimes we're the ones behind the camera, but I interview you. There are so many people I've had
I just would like to know how amazing.
It was so good. It was so good. But it was just, I missed being around Marines and telling the Marine Corps story. And so, yeah, I started the podcast to, tell the Marine Corps story through the Marines that served, because that is the real beauty of the Marine Corps is the Marines, not the organization, not these things. It is Marines, and there's nothing like Marines. And so the podcast was born. Yeah.
Listen, I used to tell people, because I got another question for you, but I used to have this conversation all the time. Kids would come in and I'd be like, I was really that recruiter. Like, if you were looking for money, get the hell out of my office. If you're looking for this, get the hell out of my office. And I used to tell, and even it was funny, the current Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, I think he made a comment recently about this, where we don't promise you money, we don't promise you college. I promise, if you're looking for anything, you would never walk in the Marine Corps office. We all get paid the exact same thing. We all have very similar jobs. We all have a little bit of the same thing. I think the Marine Corps is probably the only branch that kind of has a little bit of everybody. I mean, most people don't know, we have small boat companies and we have all these things. We have a little bit of everything. There is, unless you are mentally handicapped, like every Marine is, and we all are in the most beautiful ways. We are the epitome of the beautiful mind. There's no reason to walk in that recruiter's office unless you want to punish yourself. That's it, Connor.
It's the intangibles.
100%. It's the intangibles. Look, I knew 8412s that would take the tangible tags out of their tags and only present intangibles, and they would have them and they'd be like, look, see all these things, you can get this in any branch of service, and shove them off to the side. These are the things that the Marine Corps is going to give you. Which one of these are the most important to you, and would sell to those things. I knew guys that would do that, and that was their process of going through it. That was like some one day I should break my tag here. Look, I've never done. You ready, Tab?
I'm ready.
Never done this. Can you see what's on my wall? Can you see what that is? That's my blues.
Yes.
Inside of there is all my tags. Education,
that is awesome.
Pride to belong, and all that. I've never shown that on the show. This is because you're a Marine. But one day I'll have to go through this. But I knew guys that would take these, and there was like some ninja related stuff to how, like, if you laid all the tags out and their 6th tag is actually the only thing that matters to them, and you could tie it all back. Like, there was all kinds of shit. If you 8412s, we all think we're friggin' mind ninjas. So let me ask this question, because Nate didn't pop one. I don't know where Nate's hiding at right now. Nate's a good friend of mine. He would have asked this question. Do you have, and I'm going to ask it in a little bit different way. Do you have a favorite MRE, and what was your one MRE item to barter with? Like, if you had to get something for somebody, what was it?
Do you not remember me saying that I loved all the food at boot camp? Like,
right,
I'm from Indiana.
MRE.
Like, I know, but I'll eat anything.
There's favorite. There's got to be a favorite MRE. Like, I love beef stew or the 4 Fingers of Death. That was the Frankfurters.
Oh no. I guess
See?
Chili Mac. I'm gonna go with Chili Mac.
Chili
I,
Mac.
that's like, I mean, that's, I feel like the most stable one. But peanut butter was like, just like give me the peanut butter. Like I
You wanted
didn't
the peanut
need,
butter.
yeah, I did not need anything else. I was not.
You wanna know what my first MRE was? Omelet with ham.
Oh,
That was it. That's long before your time. 94, we still had omelet with ham.
oh, that makes me cringe.
Oh yeah.
Funny enough, when we were stationed in
Paris
Colombia,
says maple sausage breakfast combo. Connor says Captain's Country chicken. I've never even heard of that. Captain's Country. I've never even heard of that.
me either. I will say when I was stationed in Columbia, South Carolina, and the flood happened, our supply chief was just like throwing out MREs for everybody to take home, and I was just like, I'm not. We are. I will go cook on my patio something else. This is not happening.
Paris, I don't think you guys even ever had omelet with ham. It was a scary thing, but I will tell you before we close up and get some final things. There is nothing better than if you can get a beef stew. Now, again, old fart that I am. My first ever warm MRE was because it was sitting in the top of my pack and the sun was beating down on it and it happened to warm it up. And it was a dark brown, not the beige. It was a dark brown packaging. But if you could get one of those omelet with hams and then trade around till you got the jalapeno cheese, put the jalapeno cheese in the beef stew with crackers and Tabasco sauce, I'm promising you that is a glorious, glorious meal.
A fun fact, the agency I work for at USDA, they inspect the MREs. So I've seen at the testing facility MREs just all smashed together and just like never look at them the same after that.
The tortellini, like the
tortellini. The tortellini. Okay, I take it back. The tortellini was my favorite.
Did you like the tortellini? I remember the first time I saw the tortellini and I'm like, we have tortellini MREs now, because being on recruiting duty, we only saw MREs like once a year. Like MREs would show up.
Yeah. Pool function.
Look, it's marine ingenuity. I'm not even mad. Listen, I'm telling you, Paris, like there's actually the last one I'll give you is we used to take the tea the tea packets that were in the MREs. Do you remember that?
I don't think ours had tea.
Oh God. Like you could take either the tea. Did you have the hot chocolate?
I don't remember hot chocolate.
So it used to be tea and hot chocolate. You could take the hot chocolate, put it in a canteen cup, and then you take your Werther's, the little caramel candies that were in there.
Yeah, never got those either.
Yeah, there used to be caramel candies in there. You drop the caramel candies in there with the hot chocolate and pour the hot water in there, and then let the Werther's break down, and you could have caramel hot chocolate.
That's some fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can tell I did not eat a lot of MREs.
Oh, we ate so many.
You know,
way too many. And look, coffee and Tabasco. Paris, I tell my my clients sometimes that we used to use the Sanka coffee that was in the MREs to keep us awake on Firewatch. You take that instant coffee and tuck it into your lip like it was a dip and just suck on it. You didn't know that was a thing either.
I knew that it was a thing. That just was not for me.
Christopher says Mexican style chicken, but you had to been crushed pepper. I didn't even know that was a thing as dip. Huh? Yeah, absolutely. Like these kids are out here, whatever that new one is. I see it pop up, the Zinks or Zanks or whatever it is. It's some kind of like dip, but it's got caffeine in it or something like that. It's been a thing on TikTok. I'm like, they're like, yeah, we'll do these. I'm like, we just take some Sanka and stick it in your lip and be a man. Be a man. So look, folks, this is absolutely the Marine Corps birthday show that I needed. There's not 249 years. I have no idea what I'm going to do next year for 250. Maybe I'll go down to Paris. Like if they have Ton Tavern done.
Let me know, because I'll be on the way. We can ride up the rest of the way together. Are you in Maryland? You said you're in Maryland.
No, I'm in New York. I'm in upstate New York.
Oh, so you're already closer.
Yeah, I'm a little bit closer, but
I'll meet you there.
Well, listen, if they have that place done, I don't make a lot of road trips because I just don't.
Same.
That place, is going to be an insane asylum in Philadelphia. Like
In the
Philly's
best way. In the
oh
best
God,
way.
there will be a takeover. Someone's dying. And it may be alcohol. It could be anything. Who knows? Paris says, I'd catch recruits at Paris. I can't pound on him with coffee dips in it. I'd smoke them for it later. That's great. So you were a DI.
Yes, he
I'm in.
was.
Only reason I'm going back to Philly, other than my mom, Paris. My first recruiting stations was I was at RS Harrisburg. I was RSS Hatboro Horsham. I was the NCOIC of Allentown and Reading, and then the NCOIC of Hatboro Horsham back after I was a recruiter there.
Capers was recruited out of Ton Tavern, RSS Ton Tavern, before it
Capers,
closed down.
you'll have to tell me who your recruiter was, because RS Ton Tavern. So I don't even remember. We didn't have an RS Ton Tavern out of Harrisburg back in the day.
No,
So
it closed. Yeah, it closed.
Yeah. Thank you, Rita. Appreciate you. I'm not sure who this was, but appreciate it. You have to tell me who your recruiter was, because I used to know all those cats. Was
it Staff Sergeant Williams Capers? Am I remembering that right? He was on my podcast, and we were best friends. We still are best friends. What am I saying?
Paris, I'll tell you, man, it was a different world back in the day. Last Marine Corps recruiting story, because we'll move on. I had a buddy who used to their recruiting office. If this means anything to you, Caper, you will understand this. The recruiting office was on K&A. And if you know Philly, K&A is Kensington and Allegheny. It is, when you look up Philly and they show these pictures, then it looks like zombie land and like people just strung out on heroin and all kinds of stuff. That was always what it was. And the office on K&A had a basement that had a dirt floor. They swear bodies were buried in. They sweared it. And I'll never forget, God, what was his name? I can't think of his name. I can see his face. He went while the district CO was in with the NCOIC, and they were like, look, you got to move this office. We cannot be on K&A. This is insane. While the district CO is in there, he's picking up crack vials out of the alley and putting them on the bumper of the CO's car to try to explain to him, like, this has to end. We have to leave her. Ton Tavern is at the Joint Recruiting Station near Broad and Cecil B. It used to just be K&A, so they moved it. But they must have moved it out there. But that's a real thing. That was a real thing. It was I knew their prior NCOIC used to grab the hookers off of K&A and be like, if you'll do this for $20, you can type lists for me for $20. And he would pay them to type high school lists for him. And they would sit down and type high school lists. That Philly station, you had to be a wild cat to work out of that place. It was a different animal. That can't even begin to explain to you how different that place is. So, yeah, look, folks, if you're finding me through Tab or Tab through me, please take a moment, like, share, follow both of us. Go check out #Blunt Bartley, see what she's got going on. Every one of you should be subscribing to Oath We Took podcast. Where can they find Oath We Took?
You can find it on any platform that podcast or streams: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it, YouTube. We are everywhere, as well as we air every Monday at 6 p.m. on Reese Across America Radio.
So make sure you're giving her likes, shares, follows. This is how it all works, folks. And we went a little bit over than we normally do, but I love talking to Marines. This is how we do things, folks. We take care of our own. You find her message out, our message gets out. Make sure you're doing those things. Look, Paris, if I don't see that I got a new follower and it ain't you, man, I'm gonna know what's up. So now you're stuck with me. So make sure you're doing all those things. Now, next week's guest, let's make sure we get everything right, because I am a horrible person when it comes to memory. I do not remember anything. So next week it is, oh no, that's not right. It is Alara Sage. Let's make sure we got this. She's going to work on a new era of wealth creation and learning how to heal these deeply seated disorientations with wealth. Hey, thanks, Connor. We appreciate you. So make sure you join us next week. Now, Tab, I know you binge watched every single episode. You've got everything memorized in your head, all these different things. So you know what's coming next, which is and don't log off on me. We got to talk for a couple minutes after this. The guest always gets the final word. So what's the final word?
Oh, the pressure. Normally I'm good under pressure. Not today. I think, yeah, I'm really failing on this, but no, we didn't get to talk about it, but every Friday I post about Federal Hire Friday. So if you're interested in learning more about federal career paths, again, follow Blunt Bartley on LinkedIn, and just go out and do some good in the world, and not do some good.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.